After many, many days of rain, the world was quiet. The great flood had covered everything, washing the world clean. But inside a big wooden boat, a man named Noah, his family, and 2 of every kind of animal were safe. God had not forgotten them, not for 1 second. He remembered Noah, floating on the endless water, and he sent a gentle wind to blow across the earth. This wind was like a soft whisper, a promise that the long wait was almost over. The waters that had rushed and roared began to calm down, and slowly, slowly, they started to go down, sinking back into the earth from where they came. For 150 days, the waters had risen, and for 150 days, they began to fall. It was a long time to be inside the ark, listening to the creaking wood and the sounds of all the animals. Noah and his family had to be very patient. They trusted that God knew what he was doing. Then, one day, there was a gentle bump. The ark had stopped moving. It had come to rest on the top of a tall mountain called Ararat. The family must have felt a little jolt of excitement and hope. They were no longer floating aimlessly. They had touched solid ground. Even though they couldn't see it yet, they knew land was underneath them. Even with the ark resting on the mountain, water was still everywhere. They could see the tops of other mountains peeking out of the water like little islands in a great big sea. Noah knew it wasn't time to leave the ark just yet. He had to wait for God's signal. So he waited, and his family waited with him. The lions and the tigers, the elephants and the mice, they all waited patiently inside their floating home. They were all part of God's plan for a new world, a world that was being reborn right outside their window. Every day, they would look out and see a little more land and a little less water. Noah was a wise man, and he wanted to be sure it was truly safe before anyone stepped outside. He decided to send out a scout, a bird that could fly far and see what he could not. He opened a window and sent out a raven, a strong, dark bird. The raven flew back and forth over the waters, but it didn't bring back the news Noah was hoping for. The world was still too wet. The great flood was ending, but the time to begin again had not yet arrived. So Noah, his family, and all the animals continued to wait, trusting in God's perfect timing for their first steps into a fresh, clean world. After the raven, Noah decided to try a different kind of bird. This time he chose a dove, a gentle white bird that is often a symbol of peace. He carefully held the dove and then let it go, watching it fly out from the ark into the wide, watery world. The little dove flew and flew, searching for a place to rest its feet, but it found nothing. There were no trees, no branches, no dry ground anywhere. So the tired little dove flew back to the only home it knew, the ark. Noah saw it coming and reached out his hand, gently bringing the bird back inside to safety. This told Noah that it still wasn't time. The world was not yet ready. Noah waited 7 more days. The number 7 in these stories often means that something is complete or finished. He was giving the earth a full week to dry out a little more. After the 7 days had passed, he took the same dove and sent it out the window once again. This time the dove was gone for much longer. Noah and his family must have watched the sky all day, wondering and hoping. As evening came, they saw a little white speck in the distance. It was the dove, flying back to the ark. And this time it was carrying something special in its beak. As the dove got closer, Noah could see it clearly. It was a freshly plucked olive leaf. An olive leaf. This was wonderful news. It meant that somewhere not too far away, an olive tree was growing. The floodwaters had gone down enough for the trees to sprout new green leaves. This little leaf was a beautiful sign from God, a message of peace and new life. It was a promise that the world was healing and that soon they would be able to live on the land again. The hope in the hearts of Noah's family must have grown as big as the sky. After seeing the olive leaf, Noah waited another 7 days. He was patient and wanted to be absolutely sure. For a 3rd time, he sent the little dove out from the ark. This time, the dove did not come back. It didn't return in the evening, and it wasn't there the next morning. Noah understood what this meant. The dove had found a new home. It had found trees to build a nest in and dry ground to explore. The world was finally ready. The long, long wait was over. It was time to prepare for a new life outside the ark, on a clean, fresh earth. When Noah was sure the earth was dry, he rolled back the heavy covering of the ark and looked out. He saw a world that looked brand new, washed clean by the flood. The ground was dry, the air was fresh, and the sun was shining. But Noah didn't just rush out. He waited for one more thing. He waited for God to tell him it was time. Then God spoke to Noah, "Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number upon it." This was the moment they had been waiting for. Slowly and carefully, the great door of the ark was opened. Imagine the sight. Out came Noah and his family, taking their first breaths of fresh air and feeling solid ground under their feet after more than a year. Then came the animals. 2 by 2, the elephants, the giraffes, the bears, and the lions stepped out into the sunshine. The birds flew up into the bright blue sky, singing their songs. All the creatures, big and small, were finally free to roam the new earth. It was a parade of life, a beautiful picture of God's care and his promise to start again with this one family and these chosen animals. What was the very first thing Noah did in this new world? Before he built a house, before he planted a garden, before he did anything else for himself, he built an altar. An altar is a special place to talk to God and to say thank you. Noah wanted his first action to be one of worship. He gathered some stones and made a place to honor God. He wanted to show God how grateful he was. He was thankful for being kept safe through the flood, for the promise of a new beginning, and for God's incredible love that had protected him and his family through it all. On that altar, Noah gave a special offering to God. It was a gift from a thankful heart. The Bible says that when God received Noah's offering, it was like a pleasing aroma, a sweet smell that made him happy. It wasn't about the gift itself, but about the love and gratitude in Noah's heart. In that moment, God made a promise to himself. He said he would never again curse the ground because of people, even though he knew that people's hearts could still be filled with wrong thoughts. He decided to show mercy and grace, and this act of worship from Noah was the start of that new relationship. After Noah's offering, God spoke directly to him and his family. He wanted to make a very special promise, a promise not just for them, but for everyone who would ever live. This promise is called a covenant, which is like a very serious and important agreement between God and people. God said that he would never ever again destroy the whole world with a flood. No matter what happened, no matter how much people messed up, he would never wash everything away with water again. This was a promise of incredible grace, a promise that life on earth would continue. To make sure no one would ever forget this amazing promise, God put a sign in the sky. He said, "I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." Think about that. The rainbow, with all its beautiful colors arching across the sky after a storm, is not just a pretty sight. It's a personal reminder from God. Every time we see a rainbow, it's as if God is whispering to us, "I remember my promise. I will always be faithful. You are safe." It's a sign of hope, a bridge of color connecting heaven and earth. This promise wasn't just for people. God made it very clear that his covenant was with Noah, his children, and all of their descendants forever. But it was also with every living creature on the earth. The birds, the animals in the fields, and all the creatures that came out of the ark were included in this promise. God cares for all of his creation, and the rainbow is a sign of his love for every living thing. It shows us that God's heart is full of mercy, not just for humans, but for the entire world he made. So whenever it rains and the sun comes out and you see that beautiful arc of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, remember the story of Noah. It's more than just science. It's a story of love. It's God's way of saying that even after the biggest storms in our lives, there is always hope. There is always a promise of a new day. The rainbow is a symbol that God's anger has passed and his peace remains. It is a constant, colorful reminder painted across the sky that God's promises are true and his love never fails. Section 5. A Fresh Start. New Rules for a New World. With the promise of the rainbow shining in their hearts, Noah and his family were ready to begin their new life. God blessed them and gave them the same instruction he had given to Adam and Eve at the very beginning: be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. He was giving humanity a fresh start, a chance to grow and spread out and create communities all over the world. This was God's big plan, for people to live everywhere, not just huddled in one place, and to care for the world he had given them. It was a mission of growth and exploration. God also explained that the relationship between people and animals would be different now. Before the flood, people ate only plants. But now God said that they could eat animals for food, just as they ate the green plants. However, he gave them a very important rule. He told them they must not eat meat that still has its lifeblood in it. This rule was meant to teach respect for life. Blood was seen as the symbol of life itself, and God wanted his people to always remember that life is precious and sacred, a gift that comes from him. This new world also needed rules to help people live together peacefully and justly. God established a very serious rule about protecting human life. He said, "Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed, for in the image of God has God made mankind." This was a powerful statement. It meant that every single person is special because they are made in God's image. Hurting another person is like damaging a beautiful picture of God. This rule was the beginning of justice systems, designed to protect the innocent and ensure that communities could be safe and orderly. These new instructions were part of God's covenant with Noah. They were guidelines for how to live in this new, post-flood world. God was not just saving humanity, he was teaching them how to rebuild society in a way that honored him and valued each other. The commands to fill the earth, to respect life, and to uphold justice were the building blocks for all future civilizations. It was a roadmap for how to live well together under God's loving care and protection, starting with this one small family on a vast, empty earth. As life returned to normal, Noah became a man of the soil. He planted a vineyard. One day, after harvesting his grapes, he made wine, drank some of it, and became drunk. In his tent, he lay down uncovered. This part of the story shows us that even great heroes like Noah were not perfect. After the incredible trial of the flood and the joy of a new beginning, it was easy to let his guard down. It's a gentle reminder that everyone, no matter how faithful, can have moments of weakness and make mistakes. It shows us that we always need God's grace. While Noah was asleep, his son Ham came into the tent and saw his father lying there, exposed and vulnerable. Instead of quietly covering his father to protect his dignity, Ham went outside and told his two brothers, Shem and Japheth, what he had seen. He treated his father's embarrassing moment as something to gossip about. This action showed a deep lack of respect. It was a failure to honor his father, which was a very important value in their culture. He chose to expose his father's shame instead of protecting him from it. When Shem and Japheth heard what had happened, they acted very differently. They took a garment, laid it across their shoulders, and walked backward into the tent. They didn't want to see their father's shame, so they looked away as they carefully covered him. Their actions were full of love, respect, and honor. They protected their father's dignity even when he couldn't protect it himself. They chose kindness and respect over curiosity and gossip. Their behavior shows us the right way to treat someone when they are in a vulnerable or embarrassing situation. When Noah woke up and found out what his youngest son Ham had done and what his other two sons had done, he was deeply saddened. In his response, he blessed Shem and Japheth for their honorable actions. But he pronounced a curse, not on Ham directly, but on Ham's son Canaan. He said that Canaan's descendants would be servants to the descendants of his brothers. This is a difficult part of the story, but it's understood as showing the serious consequences that can ripple through generations when we act with disrespect and dishonor toward others, especially our own family. After the flood, the world was empty except for Noah, his wife, his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. From these three sons and their families, the Bible tells us that the whole world was repopulated. Genesis chapter 10 is like a big family tree, often called the Table of Nations. It lists the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Noah's sons. It's a beautiful picture of how all the different people and nations and cultures we see in the world today are connected, all coming from this one single family that was saved on the ark. The chapter lists the descendants of Japheth, who are said to have spread out into the coastal lands, becoming the peoples of the areas around the Mediterranean Sea. Then it lists the descendants of Ham. Among them was a man named Nimrod, who was known as a mighty hunter and a powerful leader who built great cities. The descendants of Ham populated lands like Egypt, parts of Africa, and Canaan. This list shows how God's command to fill the earth was beginning to happen, as families grew and moved to new places to build their lives. Then, the chapter tells us about the descendants of Shem. This line is especially important in the Bible story because it is from Shem's family that Abram, who would later be called Abraham, would be born. The Semitic peoples, including the Israelites and Arabs, trace their ancestry back to Shem. The story is beginning to zoom in, focusing on the specific family line that God would choose to carry out his special plan of rescue for the whole world. It's like the story is starting with a wide-angle lens on all of humanity and slowly focusing on one particular family. The Table of Nations is more than just a long list of unfamiliar names. It's a powerful reminder that we are all part of one big human family. No matter what we look like, what language we speak, or where we live, the story tells us that we all share a common ancestor in Noah. It's a message of unity. It shows that God's plan from the very beginning was for a diverse and beautiful world filled with many different nations, each with its own culture and land, all originating from the 8 people who stepped off the ark onto a fresh, new earth. For a while after the flood, all the people on earth spoke the same language and used the same words. As the population grew, they traveled together and found a beautiful, flat plain in a land called Shinar. There, they decided to settle down. But they weren't content to just build a city. They had a bigger idea. They said to each other, "Come, let's build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." Their plan sounds impressive, but their hearts were in the wrong place. They weren't building the tower to honor God. They wanted to make a name for themselves, which means they were trying to become famous and powerful all on their own. They wanted to reach the heavens by their own strength, with bricks and tar instead of trusting in God. They were also directly disobeying God's command to fill the earth. They were afraid of being scattered, so they tried to huddle together in one place, building a huge monument to their own unity and pride. God saw what they were doing. He saw their city and the tower they were building out of pride and fear. He knew that if they stayed united in this kind of rebellion, nothing they planned to do would be impossible for them. Their pride would only grow bigger and bigger, leading them further and further away from Him. So God decided to intervene, not to punish them harshly, but to lovingly redirect them back to His plan. He wanted them to learn to depend on Him, not on their own impressive buildings or their own strength. So, in a gentle but powerful way, God confused their language. Suddenly, the person laying bricks couldn't understand the person mixing the mortar. The architect couldn't explain his plans to the workers. Communication broke down completely. Frustrated and unable to work together, the people stopped building the tower. They began to gather into smaller groups with others who spoke the same new language, and from there, they scattered across the world, just as God had intended all along. The city was named Babel, which sounds like the Hebrew word for confused, a reminder that true unity comes from following God, not from building towers to our own glory. The story of the Tower of Babel shows what happens when people try to make their own way to God. But God had a different plan, a better plan. It wouldn't be a tower made of brick, but a family built on faith. The story now turns back to the family tree of Shem, the son Noah had blessed. The Bible carefully lists the generations, one after another, like stepping stones through history. It goes from Shem to his son and his son's son, leading us down a specific path. This isn't just a boring list, it's a treasure map, pointing us towards someone very important. This family line leads us directly to a man named Terah, who had a son named Abram. This is the same Abram who God will later rename Abraham, the father of a great nation. The story ends this section by introducing Abram and his wife, Sarai, who sadly could not have children. This seems like a problem, but in God's story, problems are often just the beginning of a miracle. The journey that started with Noah and his family, scattered at Babel, is now focusing on this one man and his childless wife, living in a city called Ur. These early stories in Genesis, the flood, the rainbow covenant, the table of nations, and the Tower of Babel, are so important for us today. They teach us about God's love and His justice. They show us that God keeps His promises, like the promise of the rainbow. They teach us that pride and trying to do things our own way leads to confusion, but trusting God leads to blessing. They remind us that all people are part of one big family, and that God has a plan to bring everyone back together. And that is where the story points us now. From the scattering at Babel, where people were divided by language, God is starting a new plan of rescue. This plan will begin with one man, Abram. Through Abram and his family, God will eventually bless all the nations of the earth. He will undo the confusion of Babel, not with a tower, but with a love that speaks every language. These ancient stories are not just tales from the past. They are the foundation for the incredible story of God's love for the whole world, a story that is still unfolding today.